In the remaining time, what I'd like to do is jump through very quickly and just give you a heads up of what's going on in some of the other states. Some of this is really good stuff. The stuff associated with rider education, motorcycle safety and awareness, traffic actuated signals, tolls, taxes. Those are the good points. The scary things are some of the ones that, while we aren't directly in the legislation, they can have an impact on us, because in many states we're considered motor vehicles, and it may not say motorcycle directly, but it could have an impact on us. Let me just touch on some of the ones that we thought were interesting. The issue of cable barriers. Do you use cable barriers in the state of Indiana?
Yes.
Okay, 2 states are looking at cable barriers in the context of, we understand why they use them. They're cheap. They're easy to replace if there's been a crash. They're effective. They keep the vehicle from being thrust back out into traffic. But what's the impact on the riding? I don't mean that bad word, impact. What's the problem with us with cable barriers? Okay, there's something we don't purposely ride into every day, and hopefully we never accidentally ride into them, because if you're into a concrete barricade, it's bad enough. But that has a smooth surface. The cable barrier has a surface that none of us want to ever come in contact with. So 2 states are taking a look at this issue with task forces to study the issue of cable barriers in their states. Are these things really safe for all the roadway users? That's good news. The next slide. Congestion pricing. I just want to pick on this one because you do have a large city in Indiana called Indianapolis. City of New York was looking at reducing congestion in Manhattan. Some of you know that the state, or the London, England, has something called congestion pricing. They charge vehicles to come into center city. It's the equivalent of about $8 for a car, $21 for a truck during the restricted hours. The good news is in London and Europe in general, they recognize the value of powered 2- and 3-wheeled vehicles. Motorcycles are free in London. So when they're charging other vehicles, motorcycles come into the center city free. The city of New York latched on this idea and said, you know, it's a great thing. We can reduce congestion, we can raise a lot of money. No, by the way, we think we'll charge motorcyclists. So they're taking the London model and saying, this is going to be good for our revenue. The state of New York had something at the state level that they had to approve before New York City could actually do the study, because there were some federal dollars available. Needless to say, all of this went down in flames, but it's going to come up again. And any large city that's looking to reduce congestion, Los Angeles, New York, some of the bigger cities, may latch onto this congestion pricing. And we may find ourselves on the outside having to pay the same price as other motor vehicles to come in the center city. Something to keep an eye on. The third one on here, I think I don't have to explain. Jay went into this in detail, and that was the Spinal Cord and Brain Injury Fund. I use this example, I used it at Meeting of the Minds, I used it at the Mid-South Mile, about what the power of the State Motorcyclist Rights Organization means. For it to be snuck through, and Jay and I had a couple of conversations when this happened, and I can't tell you the disappointment in Jay's voice when we talked, and he said, look, this made it through in spite of our best efforts. But I knew that there was a plan brewing, because Jay is always running 300 miles an hour, so even though he's telling me the bad news, there's already a plan to take care of this. This was a direct result of ABATE of Indiana going to the legislature and saying this is wrong, make it right. And we tell other organizations, they go, well, how did they do it? I said, call Jay, he'll tell you. Talk to anybody in ABATE of Indiana how they got this done. They got a tax reversed, they got a fee reversed, which is extremely difficult. Once it's in place, you know taxes and fees don't go away. So again, congratulations to ABATE of Indiana for nailing this one. A couple of the other bills, the helmet bills, as you can expect, were big issues this year. Many states had legislation for and against helmets. It was all over the map too, and I can tell you that most of the bills failed. So the states that were actually trying to get adult choice, there was no passage of that. Colorado actually lost ground in the last session with regard to their legislation and their right to ride. It's an issue that, again, is going to come up time and time again, because people are under the mistaken impression that this is the silver bullet. It's not. It's up to organizations like ABATE of Indiana, through the Rider Education Program, the Awareness Program, to convince legislators that it's not the silver bullet. HOV lanes. This is goofy. Do you have HOV lanes at all in Indiana? Okay. Other states' HOV lane, high occupancy vehicle lane, at the federal level, it says if you're on a motorcycle and you're on a road that was designed, constructed, maintained, or planned with federal highway dollars, motorcycles must have access to the HOV lanes unless a safety study proves that they can't be there. And it has to be approved at the federal level. It's not a state issue. This is federal regulation. For those of you who have been following the saga of New York City, they actually gave a citation to a female rider in New York City in 2005 for riding her motorcycle on the Gowanus Expressway, which is part of the interstate system. Long story short, it cost her loss of her insurance. She was found guilty by an administrative law judge in the city of New York who should have known the law but didn't. She had a $100 per year for 3-year surcharge because, as she told me on the phone, I'm no angel and I've got points on my license. That put her over the top, so they assessed her $100 a year for 3 years. Lost her insurance. She's afraid to ride the motorcycle in the city because after all was said and done, this whole thing cost her $1,200 to clear her name. She had to pay for the transcripts that sent to the state. The state took 18 months to say, Karen, you're right. We screwed up. And she said, okay, start sending me the money back. Well, you have to fill out a form to get your money back. It's just absolutely asinine. Because the law enforcement officer did not know the regulations and the judge did not know the law. This one person's out $1,200 and God knows how much aggravation. This is the kind of stuff that they're put in state statute so that people don't have the problems that Karen had in New York City. But New York City, I'm not telling you anything new, has an attitude. And they thumb their nose at the feds. And interestingly enough, when our new president met with Mary Peters, she said that they are not going to grant New York City's request for a waiver to exclude motorcycles from the HOV lanes. That's the good news. The bad news is with the administration change, Mary Peters is out. So we could have an administration that does grant a waiver to the city of New York that bans motorcycles from HOV lanes. It's not fair, but unless you fight for it, that's what's going to happen, like Jay said.